I cured my psoriasis. For over 12 years, I suffered from head to toe, seeing doctors, dermatologists, naturopaths, everyone in between, and nothing worked. That was until I looked at my body in a different perspective, realizing that my body is connected between skin, endocrine glands, liver, immune system, everything. They all had a common denominator, which was inflammation. The reason as to why I'm making this video is because I am a cardiac sonographer, which has nothing to do with the skin. But I've had so many patients come through these doors self-conscious about the fact that they have psoriasis. And what I say in turn is, hey, I get it. I used to have psoriasis too. The first reaction is disbelief, and they look at me up and down, not seeing a single spot on my body. And although it's very hard to believe that I have cured myself from psoriasis, considering that it's an autoimmune disease, I am a living testament to a protocol that I created and followed to heal my body within. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical health professional in any sense when it comes to dermatology, but I was the patient. I experienced that life, the same things that you went through. Self-esteem issues, body image issues, stress, chronic inflammation, not feeling well, everything above, especially in my younger formative years. Modern medical research and standards are going to tell you that there is no cure for psoriasis, and you're just going to have to live with it. So I know it's hard to accept, especially because you've probably tried so many treatments and gotten nowhere. I get it, you feel hopeless. I felt that too. But please listen to what I'm about to tell you, because this is what changed my life for the better.
Psoriasis is an autoimmune disease whereby the immune system will mistakenly attack its own skin cells. This occurs specifically with our T helper 17 and T helper 1 cells, which in turn overproduce cytokines, driving keratinocyte hyperproliferation. Normally, skin renewal can take up to 28 days, but in psoriasis patients, this turnover process can occur every 3 to 5 days. It's also very important to know that psoriasis isn't just a one-stop shop, and there are very different types that can proliferate. Nail psoriasis affects fingernails and toenails, and signs include pitting, thickening of the nails, discoloration, and nail separation. Plaque psoriasis is the most common and accounts for 80 to 90% of the cases, presenting as thick, raised patches known as plaques, covered with a silvery white scale. Scalp psoriasis, which is red, scaly patches on the scalp, and psoriatic arthritis, which can have joint involvement. This causes pain, stiffness, and swelling. Erythrodermic psoriasis, which is severe but rare, and is a widespread redness covering most of the body. The skin may peel in sheets and can disrupt temperature regulation and fluid balance. Guttate psoriasis is a form that appears in small drop-shaped red spots and can often be triggered by infections, especially streptococcal infection.
My psoriasis journey started when I was about 13 or 14 years old, when I started getting those exact plaques and scales and redness forming on my skin, and I went to the doctors, and the first thing that I was recommended was to do a food allergy sensitivity test. This is an examination where your skin is pricked with different additives that are related to food sensitivities, things like dust, corn, and everything between. My results showed I had an overreactive immune system and I was allergic/sensitive to everything. The next step was going to a naturopath, which honestly achieved nothing. It was a constant back and forth of getting my blood sample pricked, having a look under the microscope, and every week telling me, hey, your immune cells are low, which I had already known about. Then strategy was focused on a low food map diet, taking out a lot of different foods, anything that could potentially cause redness or even an inflammation response. But realistically, they also took out foods that I needed for my body to heal, and also kept foods that I shouldn't have been eating too. After that, we ended up seeing dermatologists for the next 11 years, starting off with a skin biopsy, which confirmed the psoriasis, and then trying so many different types of medicines, creams, steroid creams, which my body became desensitized to. Yes, initially they worked and the cortisone stopped the redness at the site, but then my body became resistant towards it.
So from a modern medicine approach, how is psoriasis treated? Steroid creams can reduce inflammation but suppresses the immune system locally. Biologics, which work by systemic cytokine targeting affecting the immune system. Non-steroid creams, which normalize keratinocyte proliferation. These can be acquired from a compound chemist and contain acidic properties such as salicylic acid that has the potential to burn the skin. And finally, UV therapy that works by T-cell apoptosis.
And in my final year of training, I saw this dermatologist who introduced me to biologics. During the consultation, he was explaining to me how the biologics work, and essentially it would suppress my immune system so that my body wouldn't overreact and therefore I wouldn't have any redness, scaling, etc. To this day, I will never forget the last time that I saw a dermatologist for my psoriasis. After finding out it was an immunosuppressant, I asked him a very simple question. So let me get this straight. Everything that's happening underneath the surface at a cellular level, endocrine level, hormones, liver, gut inflammation, whatever it is gonna keep happening at that stage, but the only thing that you're changing from the biologics is my body's ability to show it up in the skin. You're just masking the problem without actually solving it. In that moment, I have never heard a dermatologist go so quiet before. Now, before we get into the next section of explaining how psoriasis happens and the pathways, I want you to know something. Immunologists have been researching something called the 3-disease pathway. And what the research is strongly proposing is that genetic and immune dysregulation in the early stages of life, alongside environmental risk factors, can be the reason as to why a disease can manifest in different ways.
The 3-disease pathway can follow psoriasis, where chronic skin plaques and systemic inflammation is present, autoimmune arthritis, if the immune system attacks the joints, and finally a malignancy risk, including bone cancers and lymphomas. The bone cancer connection is not that psoriasis becomes bone cancer, but rather that the chronic inflammation and certain immune pathways may predispose tissues to malignancy.
One important concept is called leaky gut syndrome, and if you've done research on psoriasis, you've probably heard about this.
So what is leaky gut syndrome? Normally, the gut barrier tightly controls what passes into the bloodstream. Nutrients are able to get through and be absorbed, and bacteria and toxins and large particles are blocked. However, in the case of leaky gut syndrome, when permeability increases, components such as bacterial fragments, especially lipopolysaccharides, toxins, and metabolic byproducts can in turn loosen these tight intestinal junctions, causing a trigger of immune activation and inflammation.
There is a real physiological concept called enterohepatic circulation, and this is how it works.
Under normal circumstances, the liver will detoxify substances such as drugs, hormones, and metabolic waste, and then excrete it into bile sent to the intestines. Normally, they'll be eliminated in the stool as they're passed out. Our gut bacteria has the potential to deconjugate these compounds, and then they can be reabsorbed back into the bloodstream in the presence of leaky gut syndrome. But why does the liver become overworked? The liver is the body's main detoxification center and has essential metabolic functions such as the processing of bacteria and toxins from the gut, regulating inflammation, detoxification through phase 1 and phase 2 metabolism, as well as bile production. When these toxins bypass the gut barrier, they can enter the portal circulation, and this is known as metabolic endotoxemia. They go directly to the liver via the portal vein, and in turn, the liver's immune cells, called Kupffer cells, will be activated. Downstream, inflammatory cytokines are released, which are powerful inflammatory mediators. The gut and liver are directly connected via blood flow, and around 70% of the liver's blood supply comes from the intestines. So anything crossing the gut barrier will affect the liver quickly, and without a healthy gut-liver axis, your liver will become inflamed. This inflammation can impair the liver's function over time and can contribute to conditions such as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, insulin resistance, and systemic inflammation. The body as a result then shifts towards a psoriatic profile, further proliferating the plaques on the skin.
So the takeaway is that if your gut health is poor, this dysbiosis or increased permeability is going to only increase this recycling process. This constant exposure is going to lead to two main things. The first being chronic low-grade inflammation, and the second being increased metabolic demand on the liver's detoxification pathways. An important reality check is that yes, this is a real mechanism in your body. Increased intestinal permeability exists. Gut-derived toxins can affect your liver, it's a known fact, and in turn you can get chronic inflammation. But also, to debunk these holistic health experts, your liver isn't going to be overwhelmed to the extent that they exaggerate. And all these symptoms that people online claim are related to leaky gut syndrome aren't even proven, so just be careful with the information that you're receiving. But the reality is that yes, you have an autoimmune disease, you have high inflammation, and maybe your liver actually isn't working to its best capacity. What we need to do, what this protocol is going to do, is make sure your organs are functioning to the highest capacity so your body does what it does best: homeostasis and healing itself.
The pancreas is directly responsible for producing insulin, which regulates our blood sugar. An imbalanced blood sugar can cause glycation and in turn systemic inflammation, which worsens the psoriasis. The pituitary gland regulates our adrenal glands, which is responsible for cortisol secretion. Chronic stress will result in cortisol dysregulation, immune disbalance, and therefore increase our T helper cell activity. Associated endocrine links such as thyroid and sex hormones also play a role in the psoriasis pathway. Cells can only heal in optimal biochemical environments, and this requires a slightly alkaline pH and antioxidant-rich conditions which can reduce reactive oxygen species. In the presence of chronic inflammation, the acidic microenvironment will slow down keratinocyte and fibroblast repair. So the key aspect is to lower our cortisol to in turn reduce inflammation. Healing is therefore the restoration of normal cellular conditions rather than the alkalization of cells themselves.
Medicine has a genuine practice and success rate in saving lives and helping people get to where they need to be. And in some instances, yes, holistic health can help you too. I believe in both, and both have their place depending on the application and circumstance. So this protocol that I have created, what I'm going to tell you now, isn't a wives' tale, isn't based off just online information and ChatGPT and whatever it is. This is things that I trialed continuously and saw results from. This is a protocol that I created and tested on myself for me to get the results that I created. So this is day one of healing your skin. You've just woken up. The first thing that you're gonna go do is go get a whole lemon and olive oil, 1 tablespoon. I'll usually squeeze the whole thing, make an emulsion and take that as a shot in the morning on an empty stomach. But why?
Lemon juice contains vitamin C, citric acid, and flavonoids, with extra virgin olive oil containing monosaturated fats, polyphenols, and vitamin E. They work together to stimulate bile flow, support liver detoxification, and aid in digestion. In the body, citric acid is absorbed in the small intestine and enters the Krebs cycle, generating energy in the form of ATP. The flavonoids undergo hepatic metabolism, supporting antioxidant activity and protecting hepatocytes. Often, the immediate effect is the improvement of bowel regularity and the stimulation of gentle peristalsis. It's important to note that caution should be taken with people with pre-existing gallstones or liver issues. The key components of bone broth include collagen, amino acids, minerals, and gelatin. The glutamine and gelatin found in bone broth can help repair intestinal mucosa to help tighten the junctions in leaky gut syndrome patients. It supports liver function, whereby amino acids such as glycine are used in glutathione synthesis, a major liver antioxidant. It contains easy-to-digest proteins and fats that stimulate gentle bile release without overloading the gallbladder. The key components of activated charcoal are highly porous carbon particles. These absorb toxins in the gut by binding to substances such as drugs, chemicals, or even excess bile acids to prevent absorption into the bloodstream. Indirect liver support by removing gut toxins to reduce the load that the liver has to process, and digestive support that can reduce gas, bloating, and some bacterial toxins.
The next part of this video is the most important, and I need you to pay attention for this. This is my amino acid gut liver protocol. The reason why you have to be taking these aminos throughout the whole time is because without them, your body may reduce inflammation, but it's never going to be strong enough to go bounce back and heal. These amino formulas are supposed to be taken 3 times a day, 1 in the morning right after your lemon and oil, in the middle of the day, and right before you sleep. These amino acids are going to repair the gut, reduce systemic endotoxins, and help support skin healing. I've also included an optimized structure from how much each cup's supposed to have. The last one you take before you sleep, I've taken tyrosine out because it can be a little bit stimulating before you sleep, but please make sure that these are naturally fermented amino acids. We don't want anything to be digested, have inflammatory byproducts. When you have naturally fermented, your body's just going to automatically absorb them. So let's go through the amino acids and their key functions in the body.
The body depends on essential amino acids serving as the structural building blocks for essential homeostatic function, growth, and repair. Glutamine is one of the most important amino acids. It works by repairing enterocytes, our intestinal absorptive cells, and repairing tight junctions that can reduce our leaky gut syndrome. Glycine is responsible for collagen synthesis, liver detoxification, and anti-inflammatory properties. Arginine and citrulline work through nitric oxide, a vasodilator that allows for better nutrient delivery. Taurine aids with bile acid conjugation and in turn helps liver detox. Tryptophan and tyrosine are neurotransmitter precursors and aid stress reduction to help with immune regulation. Alanine will regulate our blood sugar levels and help with energy and metabolic activity during inflammation. Orthonine will aid ammonia clearance and recovery by converting toxic ammonia into urea that is then excreted. Glycine will also be responsible in balancing the body's arginine levels, which can reduce overactivation of our immune pathways. The first intake of amino acids should be taken on an empty stomach. The purpose is for gut repair, reduced endotoxin load, and supporting liver detox very early in the day. These are the aminos to be taken in the middle of the day, and these will focus on tissue repair, blood flow, and energy support. And here we have the third and final dose to be taken just before sleeping. The purpose is to focus on overnight repair, calming the nervous system, and supporting growth and recovery.
You may have heard of these online, and again, I was very skeptical and didn't believe in it. Coffee enemas. Coffee enemas essentially are a coffee solution with palmitic acid that ends up going up your other way and filling your intestinal colon. And this is going to help with liver detoxification.
The caffeine will cause vasodilation to improve hepatic perfusion. The salicylates will reduce tissue necrotic factor A and interleukin 1b. It'll also work by stimulating bile flow to excrete conjugated toxins and synergizes with gut repair, reducing systemic cytokine load.
After that, I ended up doing coffee enemas once every second day for those first 2 weeks, just to give my body as much detoxification as possible, okay? And I do them once every week, once every fortnight, and I started weaning off of them. You don't want to be doing too much because again, it can upset your gut microbes, and it's not essential to be doing every single day anyways. This just needed the kickstart.
It is essential to avoid yeast-containing foods, most commonly found in risen breads. The pathogenic yeast will outcompete our gut microbe and weaken our gut lining. Nightshades are plants in the Solanaceae family and are well known to have an inflammatory immune response on the body. These include eggplants, tomatoes, with the exception of vine-ripened tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, and chili. Nightshade vegetables contain lectins and alkaloids that may irritate the gut lining in sensitive individuals and potentially worsen leaky gut syndrome. For the general population, nightshades are well tolerated and even beneficial because they contain fiber, vitamins, and antioxidants. However, overconsumption in sensitive or autoimmune individuals may worsen gut inflammation. An addition of foods to avoid include sugar, especially those processed, which feeds yeast and drives chronic inflammation. Smoked and processed meat, these contain high nitrate concentrations. The aim of healing is to minimize our ammonia exposure in the body. In particular with males who have psoriasis and a testosterone-estrogen mismatch, it is essential to avoid phytoestrogens and estrogenic foods, such as soy, tofu, and egg whites. It is still permitted to consume egg yolks that will help boost testosterone levels. No seed oil should be present in the diet as these can instantly create inflammation in the liver. And finally, deep fried foods. The consumption of fermented foods that contain pre- and probiotics, such as sauerkraut, kefir, yogurt, and sourdough, work by producing short-chain fatty acids. These have an anti-inflammatory response and can improve the intestinal barrier. The consumption of grass-fed butter will help with butyrate production to strengthen the gut lining. On a side note, food should not be fried in butter as these molecules can be broken down and in turn at a high temperature, the butter can become inflammatory. Cooking and consumption of oil should only include coconut, olive, or avocado, preferably cooked on a low heat temperature. Kale, carrots, and beetroot are the superfoods for detoxification and should be eaten either in whole for the fiber content or juiced in the morning together. It is also essential to increase your consumption of fish, which are really high in omega-3s. However, some caution should be noted for the consumption of salmon due to the high prevalence of parasitic infections such as worms, which will overall weaken the gut.
One important aspect of inflammation when it comes to meat has to address omega-3 and omega-6 ratios. Grass-fed beef is really good for you from a nutrition and iron point of view, but it's very highly concentrated in omega-6s, which is going to have a pro-inflammatory response. On the other hand, grass-fed lamb has a high concentration of omega-3s and CLA, which will end up creating an anti-inflammatory response. Next on the list, we have goat meat. This has the lowest concentration of omega-6s and is very lean in itself and not really fatty, and compared to lamb and beef, it has the lowest inflammatory response on your body.
Castor oil contains ricinoleic acid, which is anti-inflammatory and increases local circulation. Aloe vera works by stimulating fibroblasts. This helps with collagen synthesis and dermal remodeling. My personal healing stages of my chronic psoriasis began with the thickened red plaques covering my entire body. For 2 to 3 weeks, I was no longer getting plaques and the skin was still red. And after a consistent and dedicated 3 to 4 months, all the redness had disappeared and the skin had become translucent, leaving white patches all over my body. During summer, I then increased my UV exposure and the skin became smooth and returning to its natural pigmentation, bringing me to full remission. It is important to note that everyone will start with a different level of inflammation, and this will depend on the years of toxins built up, the type of diet that you've been consuming all these years, the extent of intestinal weakness, and the time for your body to fully restore its function, and more importantly is how strictly you decide to stick to the protocol. If your body is in a state of healing and you revert to old diets, tendencies, and inflammatory environments, then your body will continue to shift back towards a psoriatic profile and your healing time will be reset.
So that's my story. I had psoriasis for 12 years. I figured it out. I created a protocol and I healed myself. The day that my skin started turning white and healing on its own, I felt like a miracle had happened. I felt I'd be helpless and lost for so many years, seeing my mom, my parents, everyone go through it and feel so burdened by the fact that their children has something that they wish they could take onto themselves. It was something I'll never forget growing up, and it was such a large part of me, and it makes up who I am and why I want to help people. There's a thing about being helpless and even at the mercy of others, you're so hopeful. And unfortunately, especially with psoriasis patients, you end up having it for so long, you do lose that hope. And you lose hope in that there is ever a cure or a solution for yourself. So for those who have made it to the end of this video, like, I hope this works for you as it did for me. I never really thought that I'd have a normal life, and especially as a kid I had so much self-pity and I had lost so much hope that I was just gonna have to have this lifestyle for the rest of my life, and I'll be wearing long sleeve for the rest of my life, and I'll be able to go do the same thing that other kids were doing and constantly be burdened by this thing. So I don't know, to get to here, right, is this point of normality, it's just like such a blessing. And me personally, I thank God for everything, for even though I did all my research and was just smart about what I did, like, I just feel like it was God's blessing, and that's something like I want to share with you guys too. You know, whatever religion you believe in, what it is. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for paying attention. Even if you know someone who has psoriasis or has other skin issues which may be related to inflammation processes, send them this video, let them watch it, and hopefully that can make a difference in their lives too. Thank you for watching, I really appreciate it. This was like just a one-off kind of skin dermatology thing, and I'll be getting back to more cardiology content.